What's up, Liron here, and in this episode of Painting Masters, we'll be looking at work by Blanca Alvarez. What's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another episode of Painting Masters. In this one, as I mentioned, we'll be looking at work by Blanca Alvarez. Before we get into the episode, I just want to thank you so much for watching, and I would like to ask, because I'm still trying to grow my channel, if you like this video, if you enjoyed it, if you can comment, like, or share, and subscribe if you still haven't. And with that being said, let's get started. So Blanca Alvarez is a Spanish watercolor painter. She lives, I believe, in Malaga, in Spain. I believe it's an island in Spain. And her work is fantastic. And let me tell you what I like the most about it, and you can probably guess already, and that is the colors. She has a very unique ability of preserving the colors and their purity in a way that's very pleasing compositionally. The idea of preserving the paint's purity is something that I've been talking about and striving for a while now. I learned from many different artists how to do that. For example, a major example for me would be Patrick Lee Greaves here of the Pure Watercolor channel. Her way of doing it is a little different, so it opens up another dimension for me to learn from. We're going to look at the works and talk about it in more details, but I think there's something like a true gem here. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I actually found her through Instagram. So with that being said, let's get started and look at her paintings. Okay, so let's get started here, and I wanted to begin with this painting that I love. I always like to start strong in these episodes and then slowly build it up and finish even stronger with a really good painting. So I absolutely love this, and already you can see the main thing I love about her work is the colorfulness and how pretty everything is, and the way she doesn't mind isolating the paint. So you've got the red rooftops here, a bit of orangey red, the very yellow walls. And the one thing that I think is really interesting for me, I find that I tend to dislike the result if I don't have a lot of variation throughout the painting in terms of the areas. So if I have this kind of a large of a wall without any variation of the color or hue on it, sometimes I don't like the result. But she gets it to work really well because the entire thing is so colorful. So love this thing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Next up, we have this again. This is really a staple. She loves these kinds of... I've seen many paintings of Blanca with these kinds of... by the way, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I think it's Blanca. I can't think of another way to pronounce it. Oh, and one last thing I did want to show you. This was done by scratching. This is very clear to me. She used maybe a credit card or something like this to scratch out these small details. There's also I just keep getting back to this one. There's also a nice variation of edges. You can see here a bit of the sky wash seeped into the rooftop. And then we've got this very sharp trees, but then they're blurry here because they were placed over wet paint. A nice little contrast between the very blended edges, and then we have the sharp tree branches that you see all around the painting. So just lovely. Next up, we have this very fancy building here. I love the way she treated these trees here. There's another thing that I really take from her style and her paintings. That is the composition. It's always interesting and it's always on point. She does have, I believe, formal education in art, which is something that I think for composition and stuff like that, it does give you a lot, and I hear from a lot of people. Notice how she made use of wet and wet here in this central dome to get these details to blend in very nicely. This is one of her favorite subjects, the lighthouses, and I love the way she approaches these. There's a lot of movement in this one, a lot of just a sense of dynamic movement. The water is full of different values and colors. You get this very turquoise green, then the phthalo ceruleans, and you've got a bit of a muddy yellow green here, or olive green. Then there's a lot of movement thanks to the birds in the sky. So it's like she makes use of whatever she can to get the effect she wants. So you'll get a lot of wet on wet and then just dropping water into the paint, but then on the other hand it will balance very nicely with the clear detailed lines of the lighthouse. which I absolutely love in this example. This is another classic one with the, I believe this one's from Greece. She has a lot of these paintings with the very white walls, exterior walls of buildings, and then this orangey kind of color for the rooftops, wavy patterned, very resembling of this kind of area of Greece, next to the ocean, I guess. And she loves these kind of seascapes, so that's really a staple of hers. Notice the treatment of this little bush thing here. Everything is just mixed together. There's a lot of twigs and stuff coming out of it, and it just works really well. I love how she treats the walls and the shadows with the blue and kind of purple, violet shadows. The sky is very strong blue, and you can see through this arch and get through it. It just feels like you're there, which I love. This is an interesting one that I wanted to share. I added this as a last kind of addition, and that is, just still life or something like that. And she does say that she wants to have the ability of doing multiple subjects. Now, there is one thing here that is rare, and I don't see a lot of artists do. I do see Keiko Tanabe doing this, also sometimes Joseph Zbukvic, but putting in these very thick, even Alvaro Castanet does it sometimes, these thick stains of paint. Like, look at the blue here at the bottom, here on the left. I wanted to point with my finger, but you can see. Here is another blue one, the yellow drops that were dropped into the background. And her treatment of the background is genius. This control of wet and wet, probably pre-wetting the area, then putting paint into it, and it is possible to overdo it and overwork it, but she doesn't. She keeps it very simple, which I love. Also composition, large shape, small shape, and there's a lot to learn here in the way she does things. It's very smart. The painting is very well balanced, aside from the fact that she, the most obvious thing is the clear use of colors, but there's much more to it than that. So yeah. Next up, I love this one. This looks like pools of salt, but I don't know what it is exactly, and these are a few people working on there. I love the way it's so clear how these are beveled onto the ground, or, I don't know what the right term is, dented into the ground, and you can feel the clearness of the water. Notice how many colors she uses to describe the water. There's this more muted green, a bit of turquoise in it maybe. This is a more strong turquoise, a bit of, the more classic green, a bit of maybe ultramarinish. I don't know. I don't want to put a label on it, but there's just so much different color variations that she uses to create interest. And the borders of this one aren't clear, and it still works really well. Next up, this is one of my favorites here, honestly. When you have this punchy contrast with these kinds of shacks, or, I don't know what this is, like the lifeguards. I don't know what it is exactly, but I love that. There are a few surfers here with the board, and then, of course, lighthouse in the background. Notice all of the interest she creates in the just by many different means of watercolor. So you get a lot of fluidity in the foliage. It's very all over the place. Then you got these sharp tree branches coming out of it. Here at the foreground, you have the more blurry shapes and blended colors, and then on the rooftop you have a lot of dry brush and rough kind of texture of the paper. You've got the ocean and the sand here that's just beautiful and very golden and very very fluid, I would say. And then you have all of these small rocks and different details. She puts some of them wet in wet, some of them wet on dry, some of them dry on dry. So just beautiful. This blue here, probably a flag or something, like wind sleeve showing where the wind blows. Just she put it probably a dry brush stroke of a very thick consistency of paint. Just spectacular. I have no other way of describing it. Notice how simplified the brush strokes are in the top left corner here. Hopefully you can see this, because sometimes my face is there if I put it there. But so sorry if you didn't. But here you can see it when I probably when I zoom out a little more. So yeah, one of my favorites. This is another nice one, kind of a snowy cabin or house in the snow. I love the gate. The color harmony just works. And notice how she uses this turquoise for the gate, but then also on the tree you get some of it. And I don't know what it is on the tree, but it just works. And repeating a color all throughout the painting is a technique that is really useful for creating that harmony. And it all just works lovely. And I think these secondary colors were created off the same primaries. So you get this orange here, a bit of dirty orange on the building, brown. You get this green and these purples. I think they're all based on similar primary colors, so the harmony works really well here. And this is really based on secondary colors. You don't have an awful lot of blue and yellow and red here in their pure form. It works really well. Notice the rooftop, just a bunch of dry brush strokes alongside it in this kind of zigzag motion that created this very beautiful effect of shadow on the snowy rooftop. And it's just one brush stroke probably, or two, and it looks so good. And making use of these different blossoms to create an effect in the background. I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but I would say there's a high probability it was. This one I love. It's just a smaller one, but I like this, and sometimes you see this when you go around a lake or a river, and there's sometimes, you can rent boats, and then there's this single chair there because someone actually lives on the boat, on the river or lake. And I love this, and there's so much interest in the greens here, and this is a guide in how to do greens. You get the blues, you get the greens, you get the yellows, you get the browns, you get the reds, you get everything, and it's not bland and boring like many times beginners tend to make this mistake, and I did it so much, of just using one green for the entire thing, and it's so boring and unrealistic because greens don't look just flat. There's so much variation in them. I love this effect. I think she scratched out some of these branches here on the top right. There's probably some drips of opaque paint or masking fluid here, I would say. Just beautiful. And the chair, of course, it's just a nice little point of interest. Next up, we have this building. And the reason I wanted to share this one in particular is I just love how she treated this fence here. And notice how lack of details there is. It's just one brush stroke, and she got it in. And it looks so good. If you take a few steps back from it, it looks even a bit foggy or misty, though I don't think that's on purpose. There's this nice building here, just one probably wash, and then on top of that some wet in wet stripes to indicate maybe the wood that it's made of. The colors here are very dreamlike to me. There's a lot of greens, oranges, purples, but then again we have a bit more of the blues. I wanted to say blues, oranges, and purples. The green is a little muted here. Beautiful work. What do we have here? I think we're near the end here. This one is, this is really beautiful. One of the most beautiful here, probably. This is why I wanted to save it almost to the end. So you get this beautiful lane that pulls you into the background, which is the house, and the subtle trees on the left here. So much variation. There's this garden here, and it's surrounded by a low-hanging fence. You've got these, I don't know, cabbages, lettuce. I don't know exactly what that is, but it works so well. And the way she simplifies the scene is genius, really. Look at the rooftop here. Just a few dry brush strokes. Really, it's a lot of the magic happens in simplifying the scene, because when you're a beginner, you don't know how to simplify. So you start drawing things literally the way you see them, and it just ends up burdening the brain of the person looking at it. And this is really something that shows you how you can simplify a scene in one particular way. And I think the magic is finding your own way of doing things, of just simplifying it, which is a challenge. It's a lot of work. And I think this is the last one I wanted to share with you. Yes, and I love it. I love how she treats the foreground. And foregrounds, and some of you have commented, and there is a strong relationship now between me and you, because we've talked so much over the comment section and messages and emails. I had so much trouble with foregrounds and making them interesting, and this painting is just one big foreground and then a few buildings in the midground, and then this blue hills or trees in the background. And the way she treats this with, probably a lot of lifting, and a lot of just beautiful. I don't know what it is exactly, a wheat field, whatever it is. It looks fantastic. There's a lot of, drips of paint, and then there's a lot of light, kind of negative shapes, and then there's a lot of dark shapes that she probably just added a dark brush stroke or two inside the light areas. Some small twigs and branches. Notice the orange and blue, and the way this one works is so beautiful, because orange and blue are kind of the opposites on the color wheel. I don't know much color theory, but I just know how to use them when I paint. So they're opposites, and that's why they're kind of opposite. I believe the perfect opposite is purple from yellow. Yeah, and blue is from orange, if I'm not mistaken. So they're kind of perfect complementaries, and they work really well here. So yeah, orange and blue, yellow and purple, I believe. So just beautiful, beautiful work. This is the last painting. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I was able to... By the way, notice the signature at the bottom left corner. It's also blue on top of orange or yellow, which works beautifully here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Maybe you learned something new. I hope I was able to provide a good analysis for the paintings. You know, I do my best. I talk about generally what I love about them, so take it with a grain of salt. With that being said, I want to thank you so much, and we can now wrap up this video. So this is it. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. One last thing I want to mention is I love her variety in subjects, and I also read at a certain website, I don't remember, that said that she strives for to be able to paint a multitude of subjects, from landscapes, from seascapes, from still life, portraits, everything. Now I will say this: her favorite is, as you've seen, is more of the seascapes, marinescapes, all of the lighthouses. This is the one thing that really fascinates her, and I love when an artist has this particular thing that they like, especially to focus on as a subject. And because I have that too, you know, I love buildings and architecture so much, so it's really nice to have that kind of thing. I really hope you learned something new today, and as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm really trying to grow this channel, reach more people, help as many people as possible, and inspire as many people as possible. So if you've been enjoying the videos, I would really appreciate if you like this one. If you watch the other ones, leave a comment, whatever it is, I'll be happy to help. If you have any questions, I want to thank you so much. Be sure to check out the previous episodes if you enjoy this kind of format. I have 18, I believe this is episode 18 if I'm not mistaken, or 17, I don't remember. And this is it. Thank you so much, and I will see you again in another vid real soon.